Welcome, COMTO family and friends. Thank you so much for joining us for today's exciting roundtable. This year's Black History Month theme, African Americans in Labor, recognizes that labor of all kinds has a profound impact on our culture and our country's success. COMTO is the perfect platform for this discussion as we consider how transportation played a pivotal role in the history of African American labor. We can think all the way back to the railroad system and those who helped to build this country's first railroad in the 1830s and the B&O in Baltimore, Maryland. In 1925, Philip Randolph worked with African American railroad workers in Chicago to establish the first Black labor union, the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters. Labor and transportation are life. And when fair and balanced, both can lead us to opportunities, help our families thrive, and connect communities. Moderating this afternoon's discussion is our very own Delia Gonçalves, Vice President of External Affairs here at COMTO. Delia leads the strategy and execution of our communications, marketing, and media engagement, and she is an award-winning storyteller. Delia helps to elevate COMTO's brand and mission, ensuring that transportation serves all. Before joining our team, Delia spent 24 years in the broadcast journalism industry, with the last 14 years as one of the most trusted anchor reporters in Washington, D.C. Turning it over to Ms. Delia Gonçalves.
Thank you, April, so much. And welcome everyone to our Black History Month Roundtable, the balance, labor, and rest. We know that many of you right now are probably resting a bit from your labor, and we thank you so much for spending this hour with us. We're going to try to respect your time and get right into this engaging conversation. We already started chatting before we opened the door, so this is going to be a robust conversation that will leave everyone feeling inspired, and that is our hope. So I'm going to dive right in and introduce our esteemed panel. Our first panelist is Yetunde Olumide. She is Chief Financial Officer and Executive Vice President of WMATA, Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority. Yetunde also serves on COMTO's executive board as Secretary and Treasurer. She was also selected as an Aspen Institute Finance Fellow, part of Aspen Global Leadership Network. Yetunde has over 20 years of finance experience, graduated with honors from Tuskegee University, and earned her MBA in International Business from Loyola College. And we know that on top of her many professional and volunteer obligations, Yetunde's main job, and probably hardest job, is wife and mother of three, and we thank her for joining us. Khamani Battiste is a Chicago native and a second-year student at Norfolk State University, where he's majoring in construction management. In July 2024, Khamani was a recipient of COMTO's Career in Transportation for Youth, or CITY, internship program. He is a first-generation college student who has become a leader among his peers, serving on the Residential Housing Association, Residential Leaders Council, and the National Marrow Donation Program. And rounding out our panel this afternoon is Amanda Miller Littlejohn. Amanda is a journalist, executive coach, and a brand strategist. Amanda is a 2024-2025 Rosalind Carter Mental Health Journalism Fellow. Amanda writes and speaks about burnout, our relationship to work, and how to find alignment at work and life. Her writing has appeared in the Washington Post, Los Angeles Times, and Forbes. She is also the author of a brand new book, The Rest Revolution: How to Reclaim Your Rhythm and Conquer Burnout When Overworking Has Become the Norm. And Amanda is also a wife and mother of three in Washington, D.C. And thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon. This is really going to be a wonderful discussion. So as I promised, let's dive right in. My first question, Yetunde, I'll toss it over to you. First question, how has your job or your work ethic shaped your identity or your own personal definition of success?
Thank you so much, Delia, for that introduction, and good afternoon to everyone, my fellow panelists as well. and Miss April Ray, our CEO. So my work ethic is really part of my identity. I tend to throw myself into work. I enjoy what I do, so I'm sure that helps. I recall my mother telling me years ago, if anything is worth doing, do it well. I'm really fortunate in that I had an excellent example of what a professional female should look like. I watched my mother all her life be an excellent mother, teacher, professor, wife, friend, writer, entrepreneur, just to name a few. And she was also the first of many things. She broke glass ceilings until it became her identity. There wasn't much to deliberate when it came to whether I wanted to be successful or not. It was just the next step, and then the one thing after another, right? I attended Queen's College, Lagos. It was the premier all-girls middle and high school in Nigeria at the time. My formative teenage years were spent to a large extent in a boarding house where I was taught to work hard, on a schedule, be versatile, be creative, and be responsible. We had specific daily tasks to which we were all held accountable. This environment provided a well-rounded academic and social setting to nurture my mind. The discipline I garnered in those years are woven into the fabric of who I am. So fast forward to today, a few decades later, right? I'm a creature of habit and still maintain an orderly schedule, and multitasking is second nature to me. In my role as Chief Financial Officer, I manage various departments, including management and budget, accounting, treasury, real estate, procurement, with over 400 staff as well, with a bachelor's in science in finance and an MBA in international business. I have the technical knowledge to navigate the terrain. My experience working through various areas in finance and having the hands-on experience has been really valuable as well. The combination of my upbringing, my education, my work experience have positioned me for where I am now. While one can say I have attained success, to me, success and leadership is really a lifelong venture, and I'm still on that road. Thank you.
Yetunde, thank you so much. I know your mother in her own right was a trailblazer, so certainly you learned a lot from just watching her. She probably didn't have to really give you a bullet point list of what to do. You saw the example in flesh, so that's amazing. Khamani, I want to toss it over to you because as we're talking about our parents and our upbringing, I know you're a first-generation college student. I was a first-generation college student of immigrant parents. So I understand that pressure you feel on behalf of the whole family to really make it, you know, to do well, to blaze your own path in a way. So, and I know you're very committed and you do lots of work at school. So how has that shaped your identity of success?
Labor. Well, first off, I want to say greetings to everyone, and I'm very appreciative that you guys chose me out of 100 of other interns to be on this panel. Greetings to the CEO as well. But to dive into it, labor has shaped my personal definition of success by faith and perseverance. I often look up to my mother from seeing her, you know, as like that person who goes after it. She's just like, everything has to be done. Everything has to be done before she can even rest. And I looked at that and I've seen some positives and also seen some negatives in it. So one thing that's always been preached to me is business before pleasure. So I took that and made that my own definition of saying, sometimes you have to struggle and also have to accept a little bit of failure to help serve those silent efforts of going through work. You have to be able to work to gain that success. One of the biggest things that I say about is just working hard, going strong after it, because you'll find more benefit once you see that job well done. So one of the biggest things that I've taken in right now is, again, on campus, right now I'm trying to get my own event patent at the campus right now. And it's been a long process, signing a lot of forms, having meetings with the president of the campus, and also having to balance my schoolwork. But it also came a time to where I was like, okay, where is my time for me in this moment? Where do I actually take time out to see where am I going to fit in? But coming across that, I managed that and had it done to where the event is in its final passes right now. We're just signing it off to where it's done. And I saw it through. I didn't quit because it got hard. But it's always about pushing forward, getting it done because you'll benefit from it.
Khamani already dropping gems. Still a college student. Someone in the chat said business before pleasure. Like that really resonated. I'm a mom of 3 and we tell our kids, do what needs to be done so you can do what you want to do. Do the needful first. Amanda, I know you spent lots of time, and we'll dive a little deeper into your book, but you spent lots of time not only as an overachiever yourself, but really interviewing overachievers about this balance of labor and rest. But let's go back and just ask this question. How has your own work ethic, maybe your profession, helped shape your identity?
Well, thank you, Delia, for having me. And hello, everyone. For me, I can really resonate with what Yetunde mentioned about work ethic being identity. And I think up until about 2021, I prize my work ethic as one of my best traits. I saw it as a part of my identity. I saw being able to work hard and being able to push through adversity and being able to boss up and get it done, even if I was sick or was not doing well, as a virtue. And it really took the pandemic for me and my experience talking to other high achievers, where we were allowing our sense of duty and this identity mixed up with our work ethic to drive us past points that were humane. And so I'm in a space where I'm really interrogating my relationship with work and my work ethic. For years, I didn't see any sort of separation between my identity and my work ethic. And I'm beginning to just ask myself, like, all of the things that I've accomplished, I'm grateful for my work ethic. I'm grateful for my parents and grandparents who modeled that for me. But I also wish that maybe they had had more time to rest and to be leisurely and to appreciate just like life and the things that they had worked so hard for to earn, and both just the things that are free, that, just to have the time to go out and enjoy this beautiful day and get some sunshine on their faces. And so it's a really interesting place to be as a parent because I am benefiting off of the muscle memory of the overwork and work ethic that I have developed over the past 43 years. And so what do you tell your kids? Don't work hard. I mean, we know that that's not necessarily going to work in this world, especially I have Black children. And so it's not a level playing field. They're going to have to bring their best. But I think the message of working twice as hard to get half as much is the one that I'm really bucking up against right now. And I'm really challenging. And I'm always asking myself, do I have to work so hard to get this result? And have I worked hard enough to be able to find some ease that I have earned just from my level of mastery? Like, can it be easy at this point? Have I earned that ease? So that's kind of where I am. I don't have all the answers. I'm still in this kind of back and forth conversation with myself and with others. But I'm grateful for the work ethic that I've developed over the years, because obviously it serves me, it makes things easier, but I wonder if it has to be so difficult. And I definitely don't want my kids to grind themselves out. I want them to lean more into their joy, into their talents, and just into the things that we don't have to work so hard for, like our relationships, our talents, our gifts, and just enjoying what's left of the planet while we have it.
Well said. I mean, I think it's you have to constantly reevaluate where you are and give yourself grace, I think, along that journey. And with that being said, I want to, since you have the mic, I want to keep your mic hot and ask you about your book, full disclaimer, I'm midway through the book. I think April is midway as well. It's a great read, and I think I resonate with so many of the examples that are happening that I'm reading through. But you start with the disclaimer that you're not a doctor, you're not qualified to offer mental health advice, but you're an expert pattern seer and a formula finder. So what patterns were you seeing that led you to write Rest Revolution? And what does the reception of this book say about our current culture of work?
That's a great question. So the patterns that I saw, everyone was exhausted. Everyone is in a similar space. A lot of high achievers, let me not say everyone, a lot of midlife high achievers are in a space where they've reached this point where they've overworked, they've worked really, really hard to get to where they are. And either the hard work has led to, great results, but there's still a sense of fulfillment. And then there's this pervasive exhaustion, especially coupled with all of the other responsibilities that emerge at this point in life, that's just making it difficult to carry it all. So whether you're caregiving for elders or parenting your kids, or just trying to make sure you have retirement squared away, or you've got a new illness diagnosis, and you're at the height of your career responsibilities, it can be a lot to navigate. And so the pattern that I saw was so many people, so especially Black women of middle age, were getting to this point where they had been kind of socially programmed and conditioned to always push through, to always just kind of work past the feelings of exhaustion, work past what felt like their limits. And they were kind of running up against this sense of there's no more room here, there's no more runway. And having these conversations with them, because I'm a coach, so I get to hear all of these different perspectives from people around the country, around the world. And so to hear, wow, so many different people are having this experience and they're not necessarily connected to one another, made me really start to investigate this further. And as you know, I wrote some freelance pieces for the Washington Post and LA Times, but I thought there's a book here, and that's really where the book came from. And so the book is partly my story, but I really wanted to showcase the voices of other high achievers who were experiencing burnout, to kind of show and chart the cycle and the pattern of kind of what leads us there. I set us up with the history of kind of the machine mindset in this country. How did these ideas take shape? Because I think even for me, when I talk about my work is my identity, I'll take it a step further and say my work is my worth. I really, I'll be honest and say that I have found self-worth in the work that I do, the performance that I can achieve, or the validation I may get from that pat on the back, job well done. And that is not where my self-worth comes from. I am not my work. And so I started to interrogate some of those ideas, like how do we even get to that place where so many of us do see our worth through our work? And so I put some history in there, but also I just really wanted to talk to people who are experiencing this real time, because there's so many stories of people who haven't been given the space to grieve a really significant loss. That contributes to burnout. You're working super hard, someone passes away, you've got a meeting still on the calendar, or you're expected to show up for something, and we're not given the full room to embrace our full humanity, and that burns us out. We're not making room for our joy and our hobbies, so we're not allowing ourselves access to the things that actually generate energy for us. That was me, and that was why I had to pull over to the side and say, I've got to get back to writing, because that's what really brings me joy. But this was a book that was therapy for me, because it allowed me to front burner my joy, which is something I talk about a bit in the book. But I feel like it's also one of those kind of moments in our history, like the reception, to answer your question about the reception of it, I mean, it's just, it continues to resonate really widely. People say kind of what you said about, okay, as you're reading, they see themselves in the stories of the people that I interviewed. And I find that both great but sad, because a lot of the stories, you know, talk about just people who have overworked themselves into health issues, or maybe didn't have space to grieve, or haven't made room for their relationships and hobbies, etc. And so I'm hoping that the book will just serve as a way to make people feel less alone, and to maybe just start this broader conversation about what does work mean for us, or and how much room are we giving it in our lives.
That's wonderful. Thank you. There's so much great feedback coming from the chat in response to that. You know, someone said, hello from WMATA, great conversation, lean into your joy, constant reevaluation. But when we step off the treadmill, we need to keep something going somehow, especially when you need to be financially stable. So it is that balance of you know, joy and obligation. Khamani, I want to go to you because, as we mentioned, you're just starting out,
Right.
but still have an impressive resume. So how do you balance the temptation to overwork and quote unquote prove yourself with taking care of yourself?
I can give everybody here a moment of transparency. Um, I do overwork sometimes. I'll be honest with you. I'm pretty sure anybody who's been to college can understand some of those sleepless nights up studying, some of those nights of like you want to fit in with your friends and you want to go out, and also just trying to find time to actually go into your studies. So as I enter into my new adulthood of being 20 years old, it can be tricky. You know, I love what I do. You know what I'm saying? That's one of the biggest parts, loving what you love your work. So I can realize that sometimes I can accidentally push myself to the limit to where I can feel myself starting to get tired, or I feel burnt out, or I'm not as motivated as I could be. So when it comes to myself noticing that, that's when it's time to like, okay, I need to take a step back. I need to reevaluate, you know, some of the good healthy tips that I do is yoga, or I do breathing, or I'll go and I start drawing. So I will go and do my hobbies. You know, I've learned one thing that's really good is setting boundaries for yourself. One of the biggest things that I do is that when it comes to projects and with my internships, I noticed that sometimes I need to recharge. So one thing that I recommend to everybody is just throughout that day, take at least 30 minutes to yourself. Take at least whatever time you can to at least go outside and walk, or read a book or anything. So I say to anybody, just take that time out, because you have to prioritize yourself. You can't be there for anybody. You can't be there for a project. You can't be the best yourself, let alone anybody, if you're overworked or burnt out. So take your time, manage yourself, and then get to being the best you.
Okay, Mr. Battiste, again with the gems. Well done. It's true. It's finding that balance and creating those boundaries. And I think we can all admit to not following that advice at some point in our journey, right? And then you sometimes learn the hard way. Okay, well, I do need to take some time. Because honestly, I think if you don't rest, we can't work efficiently. We can't be our best when we're, you know, we have we're firing on all cylinders. Sometimes we need to take that pause to recharge. Yetunde, speaking of firing on all cylinders, the woman with all the jobs, the super mom and the superwoman multitasker. I do want to talk to you and ask you about this really interesting and wonderful quote I heard you say in a recent article. Dream big and start scared. I love that quote. So give us some examples of what that looks like and how you think dreaming big and starting scared contributed to your success today.
Just before we came on, right, we were chatting a little bit, and someone mentioned, you know, not knowing what we wanted to do in life, and that was okay. I was that person. I was that kid. I'm the last of 5 kids, and my older siblings, everyone knew what they wanted to do. So I ended up with 3 engineers, my older brothers, and my sister is a medical doctor. And they all knew from the get-go they wanted to do this exact thing. And I was not that child. I was quite the opposite. I had no idea what I wanted. I thought about doing many things. I was interested in many things, but I didn't zero in on the one thing for a long time. And when I say for a long time, even up until when I was filling out the college application, right? And trying to figure out, okay, what should I pick? What should I do? I knew I liked business. I knew I liked money. And not for the selfish reasons only, because I can hear people chuckling, not for the selfish reasons only, but like I like to manage money. I like to invest money. I like to see money transform societies, transform communities. And in order to do so, it has to be properly managed. It has to be properly invested. And so I honed in, and it was like a process of elimination for me, right? Going through the college catalog at the time to try and figure out what I wanted to do. And I was like, okay, business school sounds good. And I'm like, okay, I like this finance thing. It sounds good as well. And the rest is history. But from that early age, I aspired to achieve. I wasn't the clearest on what exactly that meant. But being mediocre wasn't enough for me. It never was. I'm competitive, not necessarily with others, but with myself and the standards I hold myself to, right? I aspire to be the best version of me. The size or gravitas of a goal may be intimidating, but I have the tendency to start regardless of that. So there's really no chance of winning if you're not actually in the ring. And that resonates with me a lot, because I do know that if you're not there, if you're not at the table, if you're not at the ring, there's just no chance. You're oblivious as to what's going on, right? I also have a sense of calculated adventure, I want to call it. Some would call it mischief, maybe, but there's a thrill I get from jumping in, right? And what's the fun in it if everything's just vanilla? There's no fun in that, right? You have to mix things up a little bit. So the concept of the challenge may initially freak me out a little bit if it's out of my norm or out of the box. Freak me out a little bit, but there's gratification in succeeding and looking back at the journey. I remember first being promoted to director years ago. I was nervous and excited, all bundled up together. I had, butterflies in my stomach. But I took those first steps. I worked through creating a team. I worked through goals and assignments just one at a time. I set more goals. After I would achieve, I would like, okay, now I can step up even and do more. I set more goals with higher levels of difficulty. And I worked through each of those just one at a time. So each time I would actually move my own goalpost and step a little further out of my comfort zone. And yes, I would succeed and do it again. So for me, it's more a step-by-step. It's an iterative process. It's a gradual process. You don't just wake up and it's all done. I remember even my first board meeting. As an example, I have two mentors I hold so dear to me. Ms. Lynn Bowersox, who was here at the Washington Metro, and also Mr. Dennis Anosike, who was my predecessor in this role as CFO. And I remember Lynn coaching me for my first board meeting, and she prepared me for that years and years ago. So I showed up that day with my bag of nerves, but was able to somehow navigate the meeting, and it went very well, and it worked out. Prior to that meeting, public speaking was difficult for me. It made me nervous, made me nauseous. I wasn't interested in it. I would shy away. I would run away. I was happy doing all the work, but being in front of the camera, that was a different thing, right? I had no plans of doing that whatsoever. But so the way I see it, we don't grow if we don't push through those difficult times and those difficult concepts and uncomfortable situations. To grow, there has to be some level of difficulty in it. Otherwise, it's easy and it's not really growth. So just peeling through and going through those situations, and you know, just to be true to ourselves and just let your true self shine through. And as you work through those difficult times, your true self will definitely shine through. Thank you.
That's wonderful advice. Being authentic, I think it takes a lot more energy to code switch or to be inauthentic than it is to lean into who we are, and embrace our individual skills and talents. Yetunde, I just want to, you know, what you're saying resonating so deeply with folks. I just want to read the chat quickly. Folks are quoting you. I aspire to be the best version of me, a little bit of mischief, calculated adventure, achieve, then set a new goal. Showed up with my bag of nerves, but still did it. And I personally feel like things feel scarier and worse than they actually are. I know in my previous life, I always felt like a bag of nerves if I had to do breaking news and thought it didn't come out well. And
That's right.
and you look back at the tape, you're like, oh, actually, that was coherent. That made sense. It sounded jumbled in my brain, but working through those nerves, you surprise yourself.
Absolutely.
Since your microphone is open, I want to give you one more question. So what has been the biggest challenge, and I'm leaning in for some advice too, biggest challenge in balancing family, work, your volunteer obligations, and how do you overcome those challenges?
How much time do we have? No, so as you said earlier, I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a sister, daughter, auntie, friend, Sunday school teacher, volunteer, all day long, right? I do a multitude of things. I enjoy the multifaceted hats I wear. I wouldn't have it any other way. I think I would be bored if I didn't have the multiple things to do. But family means the most to me. If I succeed everywhere else and not with my husband and children, then I don't give myself a thumbs up. And my report card is always me grading myself. And I think I'm a difficult critique of myself. And that makes me push myself even more and more. So I wear taking care of my family like a badge of honor. My husband, Adi, and I said earlier, we have 3 adult children, 2 boys and a girl, college age, and our daughter is in high school, all on their respective and unique journeys in life. Our role is to nurture and support them. So as they watch us navigate work and life, we're inadvertently teaching them to love and care for each other, to be upright citizens in their communities, to strive for the best, not to waste their opportunities or give up on their dreams. I made up my mind, I want to say a long time ago, to treat them like opportunities, right? When I came across a challenge, or when I would come across a challenge or obstacle, I'm not the one to say, oh, woe is me, you know, I can't do this, and, you know, just make a run for it. I tend to take it in, or get an understanding of the situation, an environment, and then put a plan together and overcome that. So in 3 parts, I plan, I prepare, and then I execute. Planning is key for me. Planning in advance is golden, I would say. I use resources around me, whether it's advisors I have, or otherwise to develop my plans. There's also no need to reinvent the wheel. Okay, for some of us who work a bit too hard, like there's no need to do that all over again if it's already been done. right? Use the resources around you. We should work smart. To the extent that there's already a known path forward or way to a solution, then just go for it. I also spend time preparing, right? Reading through articles, reading subject matter, whatever the matter is, crossing my T's, so to speak. I like to have a good command of the subjects under my purview. I have strong teams as well. I've built strong teams here at Metro and in other organizations. Each member of that team plays a part, even in the preparation stage as well. And so I lean in and double click on that as needed. My team and I have these preparation sessions, right? In advance of board meetings or public engagements, and they get to pepper me with questions, right? So I flip the table around and they get to pepper me with questions, and I provide responses to them. And that's a way of also growing my team, right? And ensuring that I'm also held accountable. And then execution becomes easy when the two prior steps are well done. It's always doesn't go as planned, though. So when there's a need to improvise, I can be dynamic and of course, course correct as needed. So for example, very practical example, preparing for this conversation, I have 3 devices going here. And to the extent that one conks out on me, there are 2 more ready to take its place. So of course, in this era and lifestyle that we all have now online, you just have to prepare for those situations, right? And then, at the end of it, we should take time to reflect, right? Taking time to reflect on projects, events, board meetings, just gives us the ability to learn from our mistakes. Go back and take a look at that video again. How did you do? Yeah, you did it 99% okay. Do you want to correct the 1% or 80% okay? Do you want to, make sure you get that 20% right next time? So there's that reflection time as well that I think is valuable. And each time we do that, we just get better at what we do. And again, those are things that we can do for ourselves. You don't necessarily need to go for any long course to do that. Just look over it and then have a circle around you of trusted people that are there to give you, I want to say real advice or straight advice. The folks who are not afraid to tell you, hey, that was not okay, right? And that's needed, I think, to the extent that folks get into these executive roles and you don't have people around you who can still tell you the truth. I think it gets dangerous, right? And so for me, I still have people around me that keep me grounded, give me good advice, tell me the truth, tell me how it is. And if they think something isn't right, I depend on them to course correct me. Thank you.
That is such wonderful advice. Thank you so much. That's such wonderful advice. I think, reflection and planning seem to go hand in hand in some respect, because when you reflect, it allows you to plan ahead for the next time, and therefore reduces your stress when you're in that situation again. I
100%.
love the cycle of all of that. Just, it makes great sense. Amanda, I wanted to talk to you, and it's a little off script, but bouncing off of something that Yetunde had mentioned about her family and how her moments with her family, taking care of her family, brings her joy. You had made reference in your book about really planning those moments of joy, scheduling those moments of joy in our lives so that we can be intentional about our rest.
Yes.
So how does one go about balancing all of that in various stages of our career? So here we have Khamani, who's just starting out. We have Yetunde, who has reached CFO level, very top level of her career, but the work is not done. How do we still find rest when we're in various phases of our journey?
That's a great question. And I have a whole, as I was listening to her talk, I was like, oh my gosh, she's making me think of purposescaping, which is the philosophy I talk about in chapter 8 of my book. But real quickly, in balance, because you asked her also about like, how does she balance being a mom of 3 and all the things? And so I was thinking about that for me. And I think this will be maybe even useful to you, Khamani. I think we all need to lean into community more. One of the things that I do in my household is I really treat everyone in the house as a member of the team. You know, I am not the help. We are a team, right? So you got to help me. I have to help you. We help each other. You got to help each other. Everybody has a role here. And I think even if you look at your circle in college, Khamani, it's like when we can get more collaborative in our relationships, we'll be able, like, it's just easier. It's more fun. We have a lighter lift. I take that team approach to my girlfriends. I'm like, who has done the research on kindergarten programs? Let me see your notes. Who has a hair braider? Like, I don't have to reinvent the wheel and do the work if you've already done it, because there are things I've done that you haven't done. So let's work together here. And so I think the more we can do that in our friendships, in our families, and especially for the working mothers here, I know for me, going back to that work is worth thing, that's another place where you get caught up deriving your self-worth from your work ethic. It's like, okay, am I a good mom? Am I doing more than that mom is doing for her kids? You know, am I a good girl? And it's like all of these things are conspiring to burn you out. And so I really do have to stop myself sometimes when I find myself overdoing it. Like, why am I doing this? Am I really doing this for the kids? Or is it because I feel like this is giving me a sense of esteem and making me look a certain way, impressing people, or just making me feel like I'm doing a good job? And it's like, is there a more efficient pathway to get this done? Can I ask my husband to do this instead? You know, like we always are interrogating gender norms in our household. You know, why is it that is on me to do? You know, you're here too. You got the email, so you can help out as well. My teenage sons cook. They cook dinner. People always ask me, what do you cook for the kids? I'm like, they cook. Like, we order them HelloFresh because I want them to know how to cook, but also because they need to eat. So it's like, if you're a person who needs to eat, I think you should be a person who knows how to cook. So I think also just pulling apart, like, what are the expectations that come across society that don't really make sense or don't serve us, because, you know, we're all busy. So it's not fair to overload one member of the household with all these things that everyone benefits from. So that's number one. But to your question about over the course of your career. So Yetunde was talking about like the reflection and the rest and the cycle, reflect and make decisions and planning. So in the Rest Revolution, I talk about this philosophy called purposescaping, which is modeled on the 4 seasons of the year. And so I talk about like how winter is really the season that most of us try to skip because it's about rest. It's about reflecting and planning. We always just want to be in bloom. We want to be in full harvest. We want to be getting the accolades and winning the awards and earning more and getting promoted. But winter is the necessary season because it gives you a chance to reflect over what's been working well, what hasn't been working well, and what you want to take with you into the next spring planting season. So when you think about your career, you can think about, you know, this year as a set of seasons, or you can think about, you know, the last decade as a set of seasons. When were you planting? When were you just in growth mode? When were you finally reaping the harvest of what took root and grew really well? And when is it time to start over and say, okay, I have reached that summit and now it's time to reinvent. It's time for a new challenge. It's time for me to use my talents in a new way. So I need to take a break and just kind of pull back to reflect and see where I am. But to your point about how do we find rest along the journey, I think that, you know, if you were to look at your life starting in college as like a set of seasons. And, college and those 20s are all about spring planning. You're really just trying to see what is going to take root. You're putting seeds down. You don't know what's going to come up, and in that season, it is, put everything out there, try a bunch of different things, but be gentle with yourself because, young plants are fragile. They're fragile until they really grow and become strong, and you know what they are and you know what they need. And so I think in that early stage of your career, it's about trying things, but also giving yourself grace and the understanding that you will make mistakes, but you can try something, you can plant something new. If this harvest doesn't end up being the thing that you want, you can start a new cycle. And so I think that's what's happened to a lot of the midlife high achievers that I've talked to, is they've kind of reached this fall harvest of life and career, and they want to just sit there in the growth of that, of, okay, I've reached this summit, I'm here, I'm earning all of these things, and they're failing to take that winter rest. And that is what's contributing to the burnout. So I think that, to Yetunde's point about reflecting on your work, I think we need to reflect at different intervals to help us know what we need for the next season. And sometimes what we need is to change course or to take a break or to get some rest because we are kind of on the wrong path. So I know that's not always an easy thing to hear, but I do think that one of the things that contributes to burnout the most is when people are unclear on what lights them up and what work they love doing, and so they're kind of throwing darts at the board to try to see what sticks, or they're just doing whatever comes their way. But the more you can get clear on who you are and what you need to be your best, the better off you'll be. So I feel like that's a lot of words to answer various versions of your question.
All great words. You answered the question and added a little more sprinkle on top. So it was perfect. And it's resonating with folks. The chat is blowing up with folks who are just agreeing and retaining all the wonderful advice that you're giving. We are at 2:49, and we could probably go for another hour because this is really a riveting discussion. I think we've all received so much great advice and energy from everyone. But I do have one last question, and I'll start with Khamani. What is your takeaway from what you've heard so far today, or advice that you would offer for the 129 people who are across the country who are logging in and listening?
I'm going to give you guys the beginning to this poem called Don't Quit. And I'm going to make sure it's a little slow so you guys can hear me. When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're treading seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high and you want to smile, but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. With that poem, I want you guys to take and understand. My advice for you guys is, I just want everybody to understand that things are going to get tough sometimes, especially with this transportation industry of, projects are going to get high, deadlines are going to come. You guys have to be able to look through that and see the end goal, see it, make sure that you can get to that ending of it, because once you see it, you'll be able to tell your kids one day, like, hey, I did this, or hey, look what I helped you do, or anything of that. So my advice is just see it through the end.
That is lovely. Khamani, you're going to have to copy and paste that poem into the chat because everyone is asking for it and loves the poem. Well done. Yetunde, I would ask the same question. What has been your greatest takeaway or your piece of advice that you'd like to share with all of us?
I would advise everyone, please go get Amanda Miller Littlejohn's book. As she talked about it here, I was like, whoa, I need to go read that. So that's my next read. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. And I am so inspired by Khamani right now. Thank you for that poem as well. I'm going to go back and dive into it a bit more. I have 2 college-age sons, and I hope they're watching. I know a few of the family members are on. I hope they're watching as well, because this has been really inspirational for me. I would advise folks to just go out and be you. Don't hold back. There are always going to be obstacles. That's a given. So if you're experiencing obstacles, that's a good thing because it's sign of life. It's okay. Obstacles will come. Just jump in, look for a solution, look for help, keep trying, and be stubborn about getting that help. Don't give up. Failure is when you give up. But if you get up and keep trying, you haven't failed. Good luck to everyone.
Lovely advice. Great advice. And Amanda, you don't need to pitch your book because Yetunde just pitched it. But
So
real
funny to me.
quickly,
Yes. Well,
real
it's funny.
quickly, if you could share your final thoughts.
Every time Yetunde speaks, I'm like, oh my God, you're literally purposecaping. Like you talk. So when you just said obstacles, what did she say? Obstacles are proof of life. Is that what you said? Obstacles are proof of
Yes.
life. So in the book, the chapter about purposecaping, I talked about summer and how summer is a season of growth, but that's also the season when you see the weeds, the pests, the bugs, like all of the things are after something that's growing, but you only see those pests when something good is already growing, right? And so I just encourage people to, as she said, don't be afraid of the obstacles, expect them because they are going to come up when you are growing something good, right? They only surface when something good is happening. And I guess my biggest piece of advice though, is to become a student of yourself. We are all so different. We all have different needs. We all have a different, unique recipe that makes us tick, that, makes us rise to the occasion and do our best. So don't neglect doing the work of self-reflection to understand what you need to be your best, because what might be a hard job for someone else might be super easy for you. And you can find a way to lean into your strengths and your joy to work in a way that doesn't burn you out and lifts you up, but is still making a really great contribution to the world. So that's my advice. And thank you for the plug on the book.
Friends, let's give it up for this amazing panel. Amanda Miller Littlejohn, Khamani Battiste, and Yetunde Olumide. Thank you so much. Round of applause. Thank you so much for your gems and your time, and for sharing your wonderful advice. And with that, we'll toss it back over to April.
Ooh, are you as full as I am? I am just in awe with all of you. What an inspiring discussion. I also want to thank Amanda Miller Littlejohn, Yetunde Olumide, Khamani Battiste, and Delia Gonsalves for this phenomenal discussion, kind of like a shot in the arm of just amazing advice and a safe space and just really great tips. I heard how our upbringing can shape our approach to work and our definition of success. I heard that it's important to do an honest self-evaluation, ensuring that our responsibilities get the attention they deserve, including the responsibility to rest. I heard plan, prepare, and execute. I heard surround yourself with truth tellers and rely on your community to thrive. I heard to respect the seasons of life and to rest if I must, but don't quit. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did and got some great tips. So we're closing out Black History Month, and we'll be kicking off Women's History Month in March with some huge news. We're about to announce the 10 honorees for COMTO's Celebrating Women Who Move the Nation Awards. And let me tell you what, these women are amazing. You are not going to want to miss this phenomenal event. We're going to showcase them across social media next month, and we're going to celebrate them in an inspiring awards ceremony on May 21st at the Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery. So please connect with us on LinkedIn and our social media pages, our website, comto.org, to buy your ticket and help us celebrate these women, give them their flowers while they can still smell them with this amazing award. Also, be on the lookout next month for the return of our popular series, Chair's Leadership Chats, with Tanya Adams, Chair of COMTO's Board of Directors. She's going to interview some phenomenal trailblazers and past winners of Celebrating Women Who Move the Nation about their career journeys. And I have to say, if you're not a member of COMTO, what are you waiting for? Join us as we continue to elevate all lived experience and work to make sure that transportation as an industry serves everyone. Thank you all so much for your time and attention. Please enjoy the rest of your day.